I don't have a gavel, but
Oh, no, so that's two things missing.
That's two things missing.
things are missing. Okay.
It's been stolen before.
Sorry, welcome to the meeting of the July 1st Historic District Commission meeting. Okay, good. Here's my gavel. Sorry about that. We have a split agenda this month, so tonight we have, it just makes the meetings more manageable. Tonight will be a pretty short agenda with all of our public hearings and some administrative approvals, and then next week we'll have our big work sessions, so we can have plenty of time to do that. I'll introduce everybody here. I think we have one or two more people coming in, but we have Susan Strauss, who is our alternate.
Good evening.
We have Martin Ryan,
Good evening.
Vice Chair Margot Doring.
Hello.
I'm the Chair, Reagan Rudig. This is Isaac Gilbo from the Planning Department.
Good evening.
This is our City Council rep, Kate Cook.
Good evening.
We have Joy Kurth.
Good evening.
And David Adams.
Good evening.
All right, so the board's action in these matters has been deemed to be quasi-judicial in nature. If any person believes any member of the board has a conflict of interest, that issue should be raised at this point or will be deemed waived. All right, first off, we have the approval of minutes from last month. Are there any comments or changes? There were a couple minor typos that I might just email in, but that was nothing substantive. All right, so can I get a
So moved.
motion? Thank you.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Chair votes aye. And sorry, I just want to point out, Susan, you'll be voting since Dan Brown is missing.
Okay.
For the moment. All right, we have 7 administrative approvals. We'll let Isaac take it away. I know that we have one recusal for 51 Gardner Street, so we can pull that out and address that first. Are there any other approvals that anyone would like to bring out to look at separately? All right. Okay, so Mr. Adams will recuse himself from 51 Gardner and let Isaac take it away.
All right, so administrative approval item number 4, 51 Gardner Street. This application was before the commission last month for the rooftop deck that they had proposed. The rooftop deck in general was approved with the stipulation that the applicant return for the final railing design. So the applicant here has given us a drawing of that rail design. It is a TimberTech. It'll be a metal rail, dark bronze in color. It is going to be sort of a little bit of a wall and then a small railing on top. And then you can see that they have the scuppers at the bottom for rain drainage. And I wasn't sure if anyone had further questions on the detailing, the design. I know that the applicant and architect are here if we have in-depth questions.
Any?
I guess my only question was just on the height of it. I think it looks like it's 14 inches from the drawing.
Let's see.
Looking on the first page of it, if you take 36 from 22, is that what that's implying?
Seems like it.
Yes, it does seem like it. Yep.
Because the picture looks like a full, so I just wanted to confirm. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. If it is in fact 14 inches. Okay.
And are you able to just to confirm that?
The railing ballast, sorry, oh, okay. They might just turn the volume up. So the baluster part of the railing is 14 inches.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
Awesome.
just
Thank you.
confirming
It's
that.
22 inches height on a wall, like
Yes.
discussed, and
So
then
that'll
14.
enclose it, and then
Yeah.
there'll be that, and then I did the flat cap just because I didn't want the post sticking up. I just wanted it to be a horizontal element.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. All right, thank you. Any other issues? Okay. Go ahead and vote on that one. I need a motion to,
Motion to approve as presented?
okay, thanks. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes, opposed.
All right, chair votes aye, so just, if you'd narrowly 4-3, or 4-2.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we'll start now from the beginning.
That will bring us back to item number 1, which is 28 Chestnut Street. The applicant is seeking approval for improvements to the rear alley egress stairwell. They are proposing to replace the risers, treads, and the landing boards with pressure-treated wood. They are looking to add additional structural support as needed. And they're also looking to replace the wood railing with a metal pipe guardrail and handrail system. So you can see sort of the general location of where that staircase in the alley is. And then here, of course, are the improvements that they are proposing.
Okay. Any questions, concerns?
Okay. Seeing no questions, I will move on to item number 2, which is 53 Prey Street. This application has been before the commission for public hearing as well as subsequent administrative approvals. The proposal this evening is for minor changes and revisions to the previously approved fencing and gate. They are proposing a different height, a lower height, and the gate is just a slightly different design. Still cedar.
Can we just get clarity on the height? Is proposed is, I think it's 8 feet. Find that.
For which part?
The height of the proposed fence will be 6 feet. The top of that gate pergola will be the 8 feet that you see there.
In our guidelines, it says it should not be more than 4 feet, 48 inches
For
fence.
fence or a gate?
I believe that's what it says.
Okay. I think,
Yeah.
sure, I think that, we
Approved,
approve
yeah.
taller privacy fences all the
Okay.
time, so that
Okay.
might just be an anomaly in our guidelines. I think usually on the front of a property,
That's, yeah.
we keep it at 4 feet.
Okay.
I have a question about, there's a change that's not elaborated on in the windows, in the little side addition from what was previously approved and what the proposed plan is. It looks like they're no longer divided light. I don't know if that was just an error and
That just grayed out,
yeah.
you know?
Yes, that was from a previous approval, so that sunroom has since been approved for a screen panel.
Okay.
So that was just when it was submitted with the landscaping. And then the only other distinction I want to make is that the proposed, originally we had sought approval for a 6-foot fence with an 8-foot trellis. Then the new proposal is for a 4-foot fence with that arch top trellis.
Right, okay, I'm sorry. Can you just introduce yourself since we just
Sorry.
jumped right in?
Chris Martin with OJ Building Company.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other questions, concerns? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we will move along to item number 3, which is 103 Congress Street. The applicant here is seeking approval for a very, very minor change. They would like to take the existing awning structure off and replace it pretty much in kind. The only difference is that it will just be tucked back to meet the actual corner of the building instead of protruding out into the sidewalk. So just slightly different dimension, and then the panels for the screening are just a little bit different in terms of more vertical height than the existing.
Can I, if you don't mind, ask a possibly inappropriate question, but why are there sides on this awning in the middle of the summer?
That's a great question. I'm not sure if it's, if someone's there to, oh,
Yeah.
thank you, yeah, if you don't mind.
I just wanted the approval with the signs in case there was bad weather.
Sorry, can you come up to the microphone and just introduce yourself and get
Hi,
around that.
Julian Armstrong, owner of the new restaurant that's going to be here. The sides are, I'm seeking approval if, in case there's bad weather, big rainstorm, we'll put them on. They're removable. 99% of the time, they won't be there.
So these sides are what we'll call some sort of temporary.
Exactly, yeah.
Not holding you to a particular commitment, but temporary, has a on and off sort of feel to it.
Yeah, mostly off.
Mostly off.
Yeah.
Because it just seems like,
No, it's silly. It's
okay.
yeah,
All right.
yeah, I
Okay.
agree. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Right.
I will move down to item number 5 then, which is 11 Sheaf Street. The applicant here is seeking approval, this application did come before the commission for work session and public hearing for a rear garage addition to the home. While they had removed the current structure there to dig down for the foundation, first it was found that the original foundation would not support the new proposed structure. So part of the approval is that they are seeking the approval to do a new foundation. And then the other part is that once they removed that original wall on the right-hand side, they realized that the foundation was over the neighbor's property line by a few inches. Therefore, they've had to tighten up the garage dimensions. So they are just here for the dimensional change. They are not proposing any changes in design or material.
And the approval of this proposal does not in any way affect the granting of rights to intrude on other people's property. All of the conditions of the property line still are required.
That's correct. Any questions on that one? Okay,
Make
great.
that a stipulation if you wanted to.
Okay.
Well, so there, but the request is to just put it back to the property line so that it's not.
So that's not over.
Yeah,
Yeah, they'd like to honor their neighbor's
right.
property line. So.
Sounds like a good neighborly thing to do.
They were hoping so. Okay, that will bring us to item number 6, which is 111 State Street. The applicant here is seeking approval for a change in the window design. So as we can see, we have the as approved and then the as built. The as approved show that the lights are more vertical in nature. The as approved are more box-like or horizontal in nature with the lights. So they are coming back to seek approval for a different window that would address that problem, as you can see here in the proposed. And then here's a detail of that window as well.
So there's no space? Is that I'm trying to make sure I'm clear. Currently, there is a space in the window, and the new as proposed, there would not be? The window opening's the same, I guess, is what I'm going.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Window openings themselves are the same. It's the grill pattern that's going to shift to be more in line with what was previously approved. Yes. And Tracy, if you can nod for approval on that, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay. Any other questions on that one? Okay, great. That will bring us down to item number 7, which is 6 Dearborn Street. This project again came before us for public hearing for a interior-exterior renovation project. That has been completed. They are now doing landscaping and tying up with fencing. The proposed fence would be, a picket-style fence that you see here. They are hoping that it would be that we would approve between 36 and 48 inches tall. They said they might go with the lower or the higher or somewhere in between. They weren't sure yet. They were hoping to approve the range so that they had either the 3 or the 4 foot option. This is in the rear of the home as well, by the way. And from Maplewood, you would only see sort of the profile of that going back. and wood material if I didn't mention that already.
Great.
Okay. That concludes our administrative approvals for tonight. We will have a few on the agenda for next week as well.
Sorry, Isaac, before you move on from Dearborn Street.
Oh,
So
yes.
right now, the fence only shows it going back the depth of the house, but you said it's going to go all the way back?
Well, the
Dearborn,
Sorry,
the house is on Dearborn Street,
Yeah.
front door.
Yeah.
Its back is to the next door neighbor on Maplewood.
Right.
and then their property line ends right at the corner of the house. The rest of that is all parking lot and driveway area.
Okay, so they're not going to extend it? Okay,
No,
got it. Thank
no.
you.
Yep. Okay, so again, we will have some more admins next week, but I will just quickly run through the 6 that we kind of went through quickly. Number 1, 28 Chestnut Street. I didn't see any stipulations. Item number 2, 53 Prey Street. No stipulations on that. Item 3, 103 Congress Street. We didn't have any stipulations for that. Item number 5, 11 Sheaf Street. No stipulations there. Item number 6, 111 State Street. No stipulations. And last, item number 7, 6 Dearborn Street. No stipulations.
Great. If I could get a motion then?
Motion to approve?
Second?
All right, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, chair votes aye. Thank you. All right, welcome, Dr. Dan Brown. That's okay. Thank you for being here. All right, I should have said this at the beginning, but we do have one request to postpone, which is the public hearing A, petition of Michael Dulac, owner for property located at 325 Marcy Street. They would like to postpone this to next week, since we're meeting again. So could I get a motion to?
Motion to postpone.
Second?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Right, any opposed? Right, chair votes aye, thank you. All right, so our first one then for tonight is the petition of One Market Square LLC owner for property located at 1 Congress Street, wherein permission is requested to allow revisions to a previously approved design, lower the site grade, new rear dormer, new courtyard windows and roof adjustments, and the demolition and replacement of the structure at 18 High Street as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 117 as Lot 17 and lies within the Character District 4, Downtown Overlay and Historic Districts. So, welcome.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission and Planning Department. Tracy Kozak with Arcove Architects here on behalf of the applicant. This project has been before you many times over several years. It was approved in, I believe, 24 and just about ready to start construction when the owners acquired the J.J. Newbury block behind it and then focused efforts on looking at designs to redevelop that for housing, co-living, and apartments. Now we're back to construct this part again first, and the J.J. Newbury part will be second. During the course of construction, in coordination of Haven Court with Gillies, the connection to Fleet Street and Ladd Street and the utilities and whatnot, we have made a few changes to the grade and the windows adjacent to the grade along Haven Court. As we got into the structural engineering and analysis of and technicality of how to put the underground parking and connect the buildings and preserve that facade without risking its damage while everything's happening around it, we've come to these proposed modifications, which I'm happy to walk you through. So in the beginning of the packet, there's the historic reference. We talked about that 4 years ago, but a lot of you weren't here then, so that's just here if you have questions about the history of the building. This entire block has a really fascinating history in Portsmouth. It was in the Revolutionary era. That whole block was the estate of Nathaniel Haven, after which Haven Court is named for. It will be called Newbury Way going forward. But Nathaniel Haven had a giant house kind of where the Hanover parking garage is now. And over time, the estate was developed into what you mostly see now on Market Street, which was built after the huge fire of 1865. This building, we believe, was built right after the fire of 65 by the husband of Nathaniel Haven's granddaughter, Coos, Samuel Coos. Samuel Coos was a very prominent merchant, wealthy prominent merchant who is a business partner with Ichabod Goodwin, Governor Goodwin, and they owned 13 sailing ships, and they built the steam factory on Hanover Street. They were kind of the Frank Jones before Frank Jones. We believe his wife or he built this. We don't have any documentation, but he was the owner at the time, and this was his business office. It had a series of other retail and residential uses over the years, and it's falling. The beautiful trim work up at the top is, you can see, if you look at it closely, it's rotted. The paint's falling off, and you can see dark wood behind it in some places. So we're starting with this page. As previously approved, we want to save the historic facade elements as much as possible, but we believe the construction that's happening behind and under and around it puts it at risk. So we'd like to salvage, remove it carefully, put it in storage, and then put it back when the structure behind it is rebuilt. The precedent for this, the same owner did a similar thing with the stone wall at the Treadwell House. It was a meticulous mapping and documentation process where each piece was numbered and photographed and mapped on drawings, put in safe storage, and then when all the construction hubbub and equipment is put away, then it can go back on. Previously, we received approval to remove the first floor facade, which is not original. We did find the oldest photo we found of that facade. It's oblique, but it's in your packet, and it does show the two piers, granite piers on the side, and some sort of recessed entrance in the middle. That's the one on the right. The one on the left is a hand drawing, which is someone's imagination of what it might have looked at, but it's not a real photo. The one on the right is the only real photo. That's what was previously approved to recreate that lost facade on the bottom. The other thing that was previously approved for removal is the roof behind the facade. So during the course of structural engineering and the construction logistics, we found that the timber beams of that structure are supported by the brick wall on the left. We are excavating below this portion of the building for a parking garage, which is required for housing in Portsmouth. We will be putting the handicapped accessible elevator in the main. This will become the main entrance to the whole block, and there will be the elevator and the fire stair, a code-compliant fire stair behind here when people come in the building for life safety, handicapped accessibility. So there's a lot of structural work that would need to happen behind it. There's a lot of rot that's coming in through the holes in the facade, and we think that working in place and trying to hold this facade up in the air while everything's happening could create more damage than taking it apart and putting it safely away and then bringing it back when we're done. So that's the ask there. I do want to, we believe this is in the spirit of the ordinance by saving the important historic facade. The stuff in the back behind the facade, it's an interior urban infill site, so you can't see the back or the sides from the street, and especially with the new addition that's going to the right. It's buried. It's an interior block component. The the purpose, objectives, and applicability, item 3, that says the objective is to assess the historic and architectural value of visible architecture. So in much the same way that the interiors of these buildings are typically not part of these discussions, we feel that what is behind that facade is less important than preserving the facade itself, which is what we're really trying to do. So that, if there are any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I can talk about the other modifications. That's the previous and current. Those are current photos.
All right, yes, Mr. Adams.
Question comes up, about how much of material that we're talking about, the front facade of this second and third floor, and the bit of the roof, how much of that do you think is going to go back on the building?
Anything that's sound that can be, scraped and repainted and is solid, not punky, will go back. Especially, we're interested in the brackets, the window hoods with the keystones and those windowsills, obviously the half-round cornice. Anything that's sound will go back. What we don't have a lot of confidence in is we don't really know what the sheathing is behind all that trim until we start to pull it off. So where there is damaged trim, and you can see that in the photos, especially under that corner cap with the 4 brackets, there's even a missing coin at the 3rd floor level on the right. Those missing pieces and the pieces where water has been getting back, those would be replicated to match what we can see is still there. That's still okay. And obviously, where that missing trim is, there's no sheathing behind it, and water's getting in to the post on the corner. We won't really know until we start taking it apart what is of reusable quality. What is damaged or missing will be replicated to match the existing.
The reason I ask, in large, is I've done things like this. I'm sure many people have. And there's a thing that happens when you have a piece of wood in your hand and it's no longer fresh and wonderful, and it's whatever, has deteriorated during time of its service. And you ask yourself, if you're doing the owner, the client, the history of it, real service by putting this thing back on when it's already in a compromised condition. So 2 questions come from that. One is, do you plan on doing any preservation work on the pieces themselves? And the other part of this is that when you mentioned the brackets, just recently been involved in a project where some brackets had to get put back on, and they weren't flat anymore. They had, because of the sizes of the materials that are that make the brackets, they had split on the back and curled slightly. They weren't anywhere near the things that you thought they were when you saw them on the wall. How do you plan on dealing with that?
It's probably a race. It's probably not a straight, plumb, and perfectly true facade. And if we're trying to hang it on a perfectly flat structure, there's definitely going to be some shimming and puttying involved. Again, if a piece can be saved with some minor, perhaps epoxy repairs or sistering in or splicing in some missing pieces, that will certainly be done. If, for example, 50% of the entire back of the piece is gone, there's a certain point where I think it makes sense to replicate it. It's really going to come down to how damaged it is.
I'm sure the commission would love to see you succeed at this. But you wonder if there's somewhere in the process there's a metric or a goalpost or some way that we can tell how this is going, some way that you can communicate how this is going, you're probably not old enough. When they did the big parking garage in Boston at the Common, They scraped all of the soil off and hauled it to Framingham and stored it while the parking garage underground was built. And then they got it all done, and they went to Framingham to pull all the soil and material back in, and there was none there. It had wandered off over time, and it left, I mean, it was a big hole. It just wondered at some point if this is going to turn into something like that. Not so much that someone is stealing it, but it's just going to be a pile of junk. I'm worried.
Well, I think we have committed to having an archaeologist on site during excavation. Perhaps we could have the same process when we pull the trim down to analyze what's there and the condition. We can photo document it and come back to you.
Not to make it too onerous, but I think that that would please me. That would make me very confident.
Okay.
I do also, as everyone here, recognize that this is the same architect and owner that followed through on the replacement of the wall. And obviously you earned a lot of credit on that. Not ignored, but still looking for something.
Understood.
Thank you all.
Can I whipped up, per planning meeting, I was looking at our historic district guidelines, and it specifically says, this is my concern for us to consider, that demolition of focal or contributing buildings with historic areas rarely considered to be appropriate option and strongly discouraged by the HDC. So I guess, and if you read this whole section, it's like rarely an option unless it's a secondary structure like a garage that's falling down. So although I appreciate the preservation of all these pieces, the building itself is still historic, and I think it's on so that's my food for thought for this conversation about whether or not this is appropriate, just even though you're saving the front of the building, it's still the historic building that in our guidelines says rarely is that considered in a very significant part of town, if not the most significant area. Is it appropriate in
Yeah,
itself?
and I guess, so Tracy, can you remind us, since we do have a few new people on the commission, what your plan is and what was approved for the building behind the facade here? Like the rest of the existing building?
Yes, so there's some on the lower right photo, you can see the lower kind of sheds and smaller yellow structures. Yeah. Rudy's Restaurant used to be on the left, and to the right are just these kind of garage warehouse things. They're in pretty rough shape. Those lower additions on the back were previously approved to come down. And then, of course, in front of that is a giant parking lot. The proposed work includes a new addition in that parking lot and where those sheds are. That will be 3 stories with an attic level, which is a little bit higher than the building we're talking about right now. So it will completely obscure that building from view, even from the parking garage or any of the surrounding streets. You won't be able to see the side or back of it at all, because it's basically getting surrounded and kind of swallowed by the addition. Well, the only thing that is visible is the facade on High Street.
So is there any part of that structure of the existing building that was going to be reused, or is that going to go away anyway?
We were going to try to use the interior second and floor structure, but again, it's tied into the brick building next to it, and we're excavating bedrock under it. There's a crawl space under the first floor that slopes up, and it goes from about 5 feet to 2 feet. That is going to become the new fire stair and parking. So there's going to be a lot of vibration and chipping underneath it. We're worried about the foundation that's holding up that facade. We would like to put a new strong foundation under it so that it's stabilized. You won't ever see the foundation, but to get it in there, it's just safer to remove what's there and then rebuild it per code. If this were a standalone building, this would be a totally different conversation, but it's embedded and buried within its city block, at least the part we're talking about now to remove.
Councilor Cook.
So is it accurate to say, I'm looking at the pictures here, that the Historic District Commission had already approved removal of that third floor space behind the facade.
Yes, that is correct.
The space or the roof?
Space.
I thought my understanding was the roof. That's different.
Howard, yes.
Yeah.
Martin.
That confirmed.
2 points, 2 questions. We're putting a lot of faith that this will be handled with as much care as possible. Will you go to the point of lettering numbering each piece so that when it's disassembled, we can have at least an audit at the end that says, you know, these pieces didn't make it. They were just too damaged, they were just too rotten, and
We would have to know where they go again. And we can show you the documentation, I think we did, for the stone wall where every stone was numbered, even the ones in the middle of the wall that you couldn't see. They had to go back in the same place, otherwise it wouldn't fit. So they were all numbered and put back. The pieces that are missing or too damaged to save, I guess they would get a tag as well, just so that we know where they fit. But we could provide those mapping documents if,
that would go a long way, I
Yeah.
think, to make a lot of people comfortable with what you're doing. Secondly, the windows, were you replacing those windows in the glass?
yes,
Okay,
those were approved to be replaced.
so no restoration of the windows, full replacement. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just one clarification. If I were to just say in general, everything that's cream colored is what you're attempting to save. All the trim, everything that's painted cream in this picture.
Correct.
The siding that's purple, pink, whatever you want to call the color, none of that, because that was being replaced with modern similar material. Or are you trying to
That would
save?
still be wood. If we can reuse it, we will, I guess. It's just wood boards, and we would replace it with wood boards if we can't use those. But it would go on fresh plywood on steel studs behind it for a new structure behind it.
Anything else?
I'm just trying to get clarity around what was approved already on the back of the actual roof or the entire part of the building. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I think at least the third floor with that roof was going to be replaced and a whole new structure built behind it. So, all right, well, there are other pieces to this application, so if you want to go, we'll just put it on, we can always come back to this, but if you want to keep going.
All right, the garage on the left, that's the vehicle garage door off of Newbury Way. We needed to make it a tiny bit wider than we previously had it. And then on the lower left, that was previously approved as a concave storefront, and we straightened it out. This is the average grade plane calculation. I don't know if you care about this, but the planning department does. So this is how we measure building height. Because we, in the previous approval, Newbury, Haven Court / Newbury Way, as it is now, you go uphill and then down. The new plan is to flatten that crest of the hill, so it's a continuous gentle slope down from High Street to Fleet Street. We're trying to make it handicap. That changes the average grade plane calculation. We're still in compliance. This just demonstrates that.
Did changing that cause problems with the the building height, maximum height?
No, it did not. We could have gone higher originally, but we were trying not to exceed the building it was attached to, so we had some wiggle room. And that's the updated roof plan calculation, of course. So there's the building height that this was approved of was a hip-top mansard. Again, this is probably more of a planning board thing, but we had to calculate the flat roof versus sloped roof. So that sloped roof is more than 50%, so that we can still measure height to the average roof height. So this demonstrates the areas and the calculations for calculating the building height. It is in compliance.
So, Joy, I think you can see how they were, there was a whole new roof over this area that was approved.
All right, this is the Conger Street facade. Let's see. To the left, this is way back in the distance behind the what is currently the works shop. So you can't really see this from the street, but if we were just taking this 2D elevation and looking all the way back to the Hanover garage, you would see it. So on the left, we previously had a recessed balcony on that roof, and now we're making it a pop-up shed dormer. And then the stair overrun way in the back, that's across from the Hanover garage. You can see the back of it there. It has it used to have a flat roof and a flat wall, and we now were able to tilt the roof down facing south. The dormer on the right, I think it was a minor trim change on the transom window that I can't see from here, but there.
Arch transoms.
Arch transoms, okay.
And solar panels.
Yes.
Bless you.
This project still has solar panels on it. We talked about the 18 High Street. On the upper drawing, way in the back, on the top, you can see the stair overrun in the distance. Previously, it was a flat roof, and now we're tipping it back down on the left. What that is?
When you refer to slate shingles, are those stone or?
They are natural slate. They're green slate from Vermont, the real deal. Yep.
Everlasting green.
Well, I don't know, Vermont green, I think they call it. Yeah. We did bring in samples originally. Okay, that's the oblique view. The main difference is that the slope of the hill is flattened out there, and the garage door got a little bit wider. Yep, the same deal. This is looking from Fleets. Like if you were on the roof of J.J. Newberry's, that's what you would see. And again, that's the stair overrun with a sloped roof instead of a flat roof. We added some transom windows. You'll never see that unless you're on the roof of J.J. Newberry's. Oh, and on the far right, we did add some fire-rated windows on that party wall against the behind the bagel store. Which you can see there. Again, that building's interesting. It has that facade that pops up for 2 stories right at the street, but then it goes back down to 1 story behind it. There's like a little valley in there. And this is the revised rendering of this is the residential entrance off of Newbury Way across from the Hanover garage. Previously, the grade was higher, and also that entrance was all glass because of fire separation between the Newbury building and this one. It's now just a glass door with solid walls on both sides, so we could get a 4-foot firewall in there. And I think that's it.
Any other questions?
Yes. I have a question about the viewscape from Congress Street. In the previously approved design plan, you don't see the mechanicals on the top of the roof, but in the new approval, they're clearly there. Are they set back at a good distance so that they're not really visible, and this is just because of the height line we're at?
I think we show them on the roof plan here. There are some small condensers, like hip high, on the front part, but the larger units are towards the back, towards the interior. There we go.
See.
Oh, and it's not showing on there.
It's down a page.
Yeah, I think it's
It's
just
the
that,
next page.
that like straight.
Yeah, I think it's the view from 2D.
Yeah.
So the previous approved is not showing the large mechanical on top, but then the proposed does. I'm assuming those are just set back, so,
They are set back.
okay.
I also had a question on that page, H523. On the right-hand side, you have a,
23.
yeah, there. So on the bottom right corner, you have a red bubble around the far right-hand section. And compared to the left-hand side, those look very different. One looks glass-like, is this just different coloring? One looks wider, one looks skinnier.
If you can scooch up the page just a little bit to see the bottom left corner a little more. Yep, okay, so you are correct. The stair overrun we made narrower. You can see the one on the left, it was much wider and it was all glass on the upper floor. Because of fire separation and we were just a little tighter with our stair design, we were able to make it narrower. And the fire separation, again, we weren't able to do all the glass, so we just have that one little square window at the top to
So this is
provide light.
this is the upper section of
That's
the
the-
entrance you were just talking about.
It is,
Okay.
but you can see how it's kind of divided into two parts, the upper part and the lower part. That upper part is set back from the lower part by about 8 or 9 feet.
Just one of those situations where there's so many little moving parts that when you put them all together, it's sometimes hard to figure out what's really changed. As a
That area is, there's a lot of weird geometry there with the recessed entrance and the roofs. That's why we provided the 3D rendering to give the street view of that.
Anything else?
Just
Yeah.
a quick question. On sheet H5.24, you're showing the section through, that's not part of this project,
That's a section through J.J. Newberry's and the bagel shop.
and that's, okay, previously, but proposed, you're showing the section in a different location?
Yes.
Okay.
So we scooched it forward so we wanted to show all those fire windows. You're right, the view on top is cut closer to Fleet Street, not through the bagel shop. But we realized you wouldn't be able to see all those windows in the courtyard if we did that.
And so that roof, it's like the Deco building, the Art Deco
Yes,
building.
yeah.
Is that part of this project?
No, that's owned by somebody else.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can't put the mechanicals on that instead of,
Sadly, no.
no, I guess not. Okay.
No.
Okay. any
Late
other-
at night, maybe.
Yes, Counselor.
Page H555. I'm just looking at the facade changes. It seems that there's a significant change in materials on the surface. Is there a reason why you chose to change materials besides just design choice?
It's actually this, so the dark metal is actually the same material, but it's different lighting in the rendering. It's the same metal that's used around the building. It's a bronze. I think it came out really washed out on the original rendering to the left on that particular view. It is a kind of a bronzy color like you see on the rendering to the right. The left part of that curved storefront is probably the most different. On the left, you can see we had the granite base, and then there was like a recessed balcony, and then the glass above. When we lowered the grade, we felt it was becoming really ominous to have this like granite fortress, because we're almost a whole story lower at this point. And then the recessed balcony in the middle of the wall did not make sense anymore because the wall is now higher. So we just simplified it to have the two-story glass in the storefront below. It's actually an exact replica of the other corner on High Street. So now it ties it together better. It balances, it kind of bookends that facade.
Okay. Anything else? All right. I mean, I think these are all pretty straightforward, so I will open it up to the public to see if there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this project, the modifications to this project. Is there anyone online? I don't see anyone here. All right, great. If there's no one to speak, I will close the public hearing and wait for a motion. You can always have some conversation once the motion has been made.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second that.
I think we might have wanted some stipulations with seeing the documentation of the,
Absolutely.
I don't know what you call it,
The account of
Yeah.
the materials of the existing facade and the details of all of it, except for, I guess, the windows, which I didn't recall that, but that's unfortunate. But is that something we could keep a track of?
Okay.
Thank you. That would be my only stipulation.
do you have findings of fact for us?
Yes. I believe this still preserves the integrity of the district and is consistent with the special and defining character of the surrounding properties. And I just feel like it's still a very good project that ties old and new together very well.
Any other comments?
For me, the whole thing is worth taking that damned fire escape
Yes.
and actually giving us the opportunity to have that Opera House facade remain.
Yes.
I think it's a win.
I agree. I think, again, this group has proven that they will spend all of the effort to properly document and reconstruct. So hopefully it works as well as possible with historic wood rather than stone, but hopefully it'll work. And but I do think that it will, yes, once this is all done, it will look a lot better.
And I think we've also seen the effect of this sort of careful work on the old John's Barber Shop. It was also very successful, where somebody took the time to recreate or preserve the special architectural details. So it makes a difference. It looks and feels different when it's old wood than something that's freshly milled and the edges are sharp and it hasn't gotten 5 layers of paint on it. So it matters.
Yes.
I appreciate the addition of the windows on the west elevation of the building. I think that really does add something to the prior design and the matching of the entryways. I appreciate that as well because it provides a little bit more consistency in the building.
Great. All right. Wonderful. If there's no other discussion, I'll call for a vote. So all in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Great.
I'm opposed.
You're opposed? Okay. Chair votes aye. Thank you. All right. next one is public hearing new business. Number 1, petition of 409 Franklin Pierce Highway LLC owner for property located at 24 Market Street, wherein permission is requested to allow exterior renovations to an existing structure, replace rotted storefront paneling, replace existing transom window with a panel detail along Market Street, remove unnecessary exterior HVAC and fire alarm components, and replace a transom window with a louver along Ladd Street, as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 117 as Lot 24 and lies within Character District 5, Downtown Overlay, and Historic Districts. Hello, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. My name is David Calkins, 175 Woodlawn Circle. Here tonight to represent 409 Franklin Pierce Highway LLC and the application for 24 Market Street. This application's been in front of you 3 times now, actually, and unfortunately I allowed the approval to lapse for no other reason than, honestly, we've been busy trying to finish up a different project and we're getting there finally. But as a matter of formality, I'll go back through this as it's a new application. I'll be relatively brief, and if there's anywhere that you would like me to dive in deeper, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you. Yes, so just to refresh everybody, this has been approved already, and it looks like this is the same exact application. But we do have a few new members, so if you wouldn't mind just giving the overall.
Don't mind at all.
Thank you.
So we came before you November of 24 with this initially as an admin approval. The commission gave us some feedback, design-related things, as well as some material selections. We came back in February of 25, and it was approved. And as the chair has mentioned, it's the exact same application. We have not omitted or revised anything. So this was approved in 25. 24 Market Street currently is a vacant commercial unit, and we're looking to essentially redo the millwork facade. The permit suggests that this facade was redone late 90s. The trim on there is really nothing that's historically relevant, nor is the paneling. Our plan is to remove all of it, address some flashing and moisture issues that we have from the granite lintel and from the sidewalk, replace the paneling. The windows, the current windows, current door will remain. The stained glass transom that is over the front door, that will be removed and replaced with a solid panel. We would then apply mahogany or sapele, would be our material that we would use to recreate a new panelized system as we have laid out in this application. That's on that elevation. More notably on the Ladd Street side, we would like to reinstate the granite lintel. We've secured the granite to do so. We'd like to remove the obsolete fire alarm that is there and remove the charming through-wall AC unit that's there, reinstate the water-struck brick. And then further down on Ladd Street, you'll notice there's 2 doors, both have transoms. The door closest to the corner has just a solid wooden panel over it for a transom. We would utilize that for a HVAC louver to support the new mechanics for that space. So all in all, from an aesthetic standpoint, improving the Ladd Street elevation just by reinstating the granite, removing the AC and the fire alarm, the introduction of a louver over the first door. There's already a panel there, so minimally impactful there. And then on the front elevation, removing the white paneling that really is in serious need of attention, reinstating it with mahogany materials, and then introducing a plum color, a dark plum color.
Scroll down to the proposed rules, maybe. So are there any questions from anyone? All right, well then, if there are no questions, thank you for that summary. And I don't have any questions, but I think if we can open it up to the public. If there's anyone in the public who, again, would like to speak to this application, come forward. Anyone online? All right, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and wait for a motion.
I move we approve this as directed, as we did before. I would think we're preserving the integrity of the district, and it's compatible of design with the surrounding properties.
Second.
Thanks. Any discussion?
I would just like to add that I'm really pleased that we're continuing to have real wood used on the storefront. It's very important as people walk down the street.
Okay, so, wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, chair votes aye. Thank you. This will look great when it's done. All right, now we're the last two public hearings. We've got public hearing number 2, the petition of Lawrence Barr and Donna Novelli, owners for property located at 39 Chauncey Street, wherein permission is requested to allow exterior renovations to an existing structure, replace all windows, as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 134 as Lot 31 and lies within the General Residence A and Historic Districts. So who is here to represent this?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Andrew Bagley. My wife Janet and I, we live across the street at 40 Chauncey Street, and we're representing as neighbors and not as a member of the council. Larry and Donna are traveling today, so they're not able here to speak. As some of you are aware, last May the HDC voted to adjust the HDC district boundaries to match other areas of the city, like Islington Street, instead of Middle Street, where it's just 150 feet of either side, and properties such as this kind of get caught up where they're technically in the HDC, but they're not really in the HDC because they're in the HDC. They're just in the HDC because of geometry and arithmetic. Whereas if this was a Islington Street house, it wouldn't be in the HDC because we used a more refined approach. And I had let Larry and Donna and actually all of my neighbors know about this proceeding, and that it was coming to council, and then it would be referred to the planning board about a year ago. And it's never come back to the council as far as I know, or it got delayed, or it's now part of the master plan. So they understood that to mean that they were out of the HDC, as any layperson probably would be. So they went out, they purchased windows, and when they pulled the building permit to install the windows, they couldn't because they're in the HDC still. But my understanding after a lot of discussion is the windows more or less comply with the HDC regulations. They are HDC approvable windows, which is why we're before the HDC tonight so they can have new windows.
Great. So Isaac, can you pull up the specification, which wasn't in the original application, but here we go. And I suppose everyone else, I mean, we got this by email, so are these, we didn't say what they are. I mean, so our usual standard is simulated divided light and non-vinyl, but so I don't know if you know anything about the new windows that
As somebody that will look out my front window towards these windows, I think they're a great improvement. We did come and speak a few years ago on behalf of them as well when they did the solar panels on the roof, and those came out excellent. The modern ones look a lot nicer than the old school ones did. So it's been an improvement to the house.
Yeah, great. Any questions?
So I guess a question for the board. Is this house in the HTC?
Technically, it is still in the district because we have not moved forward. As we have redrawn the lines and the proposed new boundaries, it would not be in the district.
Okay.
So
Very good.
we're just a little bit stuck at the moment, as we know, from moving that forward. Anybody else?
And also, just to reiterate, I believe Mr. Bagley did say that these windows were purchased, so I believe they are kind of waiting. So,
So, yes, they've already purchased them.
So even if we were to deny, once we change, you could still put the windows in.
They could
so-
just hold on to the windows and
Yeah,
put them in.
so, okay.
Yep.
It sort of depends what day it is.
Right. Right. Counselor?
I think there's some specific challenges that these homeowners have around installing the windows later. Because my understanding is they're not planning to stay in the house long-term. So that would be a particular challenge for them. They can't just install them later.
What is our expected outcome on our proposal
I'm sorry?
with the modification that we had met with the planning board?
I think that, we had a discussion with the planning board, and I think that we all kind of were in somewhat of an agreement to at least move this particular part of the boundary, not really redistricting, just a redefining of the boundary, and move that forward, and still plan on having a larger conversation about district boundaries and preservation within the next few months.
And we can talk specifically about the Middle Street part that we talked about in our work session at next week's meeting if we'd like to have a formal discussion before we move forward to the planning board. But the planning board is looking forward to our recommendation for their next meeting, which is their July meeting.
Okay, great. So we can add that to the agenda and have an actual discussion again with ourselves.
And just make sure we're good with everything, and then we'll just bring that to the planning board.
Yes, Councilor?
I would be really reluctant to be in a position to deny a request for a homeowner that could potentially be out of the district within a month and a half.
Right. No, okay. Yes, Dr.
I think their inclusion, the HDC, was really only partial and not what we wanted to do, and was a structured thing that we've corrected. So I would think that any binding by the HDC is pretty much gone at this point.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting predicament. I think there's also with the lines going through properties and the lack of transparency from the city around that. I feel like technically it's in the HGC and we should vote accordingly, but I think there's also the discrepancy of you're open to interpretation. I'm going to chime in here about map Geo, and I don't think that's fair to homeowners. And the lack of transparency around that, I think, is an issue. So for that reason, I would support this because their property line is negotiable, potentially negotiable.
And just like every hearing we have and every application, we do look at every property individually, so it wouldn't necessarily be setting a precedence either way if we're very clear with our decision and how the motion and findings of fact are laid out. So
But this is, without question, a commission that votes on the appropriateness of things. And I have to say, I don't see how that makes it appropriate. We don't typically vote on people's names or spiritualism or how long they intend to live in the house or any of those things. I mean, the neighbors, regardless of how long the current owners stay there, the neighbors are going to be the same. I do understand the human part of this, but it just seems like you're going to have a little bit of difficulty describing how it's an appropriate decision.
Given that they're technically in the HDC.
Yeah.
All right, yes,
I'm gonna wait till somebody makes a motion.
okay, let's do it. Is there anyone, yes, do you have another question or? Okay, I'm going to open it up to the public then, in case there's anyone from the public wishing to speak to, for, or against this application. Anyone online? Okay. All right, seeing no one rise, I'll close the public hearing and read for a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the application as presented. We can get the discussion
Is there a
going.
second?
Second.
You have
You want findings of facts?
Sure.
Okay, all right, bear with me, please.
Dig deep.
It's complement and enhance the architectural historic character of, and is compatibility of innovative technologies with surrounding properties.
Okay. Would
But-
you like to condition your,
Well, I would just simply say that I think we should also be a board that considers fairness. And that should be part of our standard as well. I don't know if that's in the guidebook, but we should have some common sense and say, you know, this is one of these circumstances where it's not, you know, it's going to change over time. So the applicant is in a situation where they can wait it out and go ahead and do it anyway. So why should we follow the letter of the law when it would only make us sound inflexible and unfair?
Just to be devil's advocate, though, that's assuming, you know.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I said just a little bit devil's advocate, though, and I hear you, and I'm empathetic and want to vote for the homeowner, but in fairness, like we're supposed to vote as it currently is. I'm just thinking about the other side of it.
And my argument is that extenuating circumstances, the fairness lies with allowing this to occur.
Is one of your extenuating circumstances that without considering the issues of the commission, they went ahead and bought the windows anyway? And so they come here with a de facto, this is the window and you have to approve it? Is that your idea of extenuating circumstance?
No, it isn't. That's not a good argument for approving it, but I'm going with my separate argument.
and to be clear, they were under the assumption they were no longer in the district, so not that it,
It wasn't the
We have another
smartest
scenario
move
like that, which we
to do
did.
that. We don't recommend our applicants make major purchases without
Contacting the city.
locking in a building permit.
I'm going to ask Councilor Cook, since she made the second.
The reason this is consistent with the neighborhood and the neighboring properties is that most of the neighboring properties are not in the district. The properties on the same street, across the street, are not in the district. There are just a few properties on this street that are accidentally captured in the district because their backyards are in the district, not their houses, not it's because of where the line was drawn through the backs of their properties. So I think that it's really important to note that's up to interpretation. You know, we could say that the front of this house is not in the district because it's actually not captured on the map with the line covering the front of this house. So it is consistent with the neighborhood, and these windows would be consistent with what is in neighboring properties on this street.
I just want to,
Sorry.
oh, sure, sorry, I didn't know.
Go ahead.
there was-
Yeah.
didn't see your hand.
I just wanted to, my interpretation and an attempt to provide some consistency with previous decisions. The purpose of the district being drawn down Middle Street was to allow a view shed as you drive down Middle Street that would retain this historic feel and historic district. This building, most of the buildings on this side of Chauncey Street have absolutely no view shed onto Middle Street. And we have repeatedly talked about front of house and back of house. Houses fully inside the district, we have allowed on the back side where only the closest neighbor peering over a fence would be able to see the changes that were put on the building. We have allowed leeway there. And I think this is a clear example of that, where the changes being made are not in the view shed that is the historic district, which is what you see when you go up and down Middle Street. So that is my argument for allowing this change while the building is still in the district, regardless of whether it gets approved to stay in or that gets turned down. And the decision that gets made a month from now is not what I'm basing my decision on today. My decision today is that this is a version of back of house.
Anyone else?
I just want to comment that I don't think it's accidentally in the districts. It was the decision that was made at some point. We're just proposing it's different moving ahead because it doesn't make sense. Because otherwise, all the other houses that have the line through it could currently say, which, correct, we can't get clear answers from City Hall on some of these, at least I can't. But my understanding, which I cannot get clarity from, is that if their line is on the property, it is in the historic district, and it's not currently accidental. And we're proposing it doesn't make sense. But, right?
It has been interpreted different ways over time, which is why we're trying to correct this.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
sometimes it's been accepted as being in the district if the line goes through the building, not in the district if the line goes through the yard. So this is what we're trying to clear up because
Okay,
this is
gotcha.
ridiculous.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Okay.
So, all right, are there any other,
Okay.
there's a lot to consider here. Are there any other discussion points for this? If not, we'll go ahead and call for a motion.
I gave a motion.
I'm sorry, call for a vote. That's what I meant to say. Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. I agree with Margot's statements, and hopefully we will get this cleared up very soon, the whole boundary issue. Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you. And the last one, last hearing today is the petition of Susan Ingersoll, owner for property located at 46 Aldrich Street, wherein permission is requested to allow the removal of the existing detached garage on the site and new construction of an attached garage in addition to the existing main house, as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 148 as Lot 26 and lies within the General Residence A and Historic Districts. Good evening. Please introduce yourself.
How you doing? So I'm Justin. I'm the architectural designer for the project. Susan couldn't be here, so I'm here representing her. Not to beat the same drum, but I think this one actually falls very much in line with the last project.
Yes.
If you could actually go to the last page, I don't know who's controlling the PDF, but the last page has a kind of an overview of the HDC map.
Right. So your parcel is split in half.
Correct.
By the
Yes,
line.
ours is in half, and I would say we're halfway through the building as well. So we did have a survey done, but we didn't do the measurement of 150 feet from the middle of Middle Street to see exactly where it fell, but just kind of using satellite imagery, we'll call it half. So yeah, if you could go back again to the first page, thank you.
Of course.
So there's an existing detached garage shed that's in a little bit of disrepair. We've gotten approvals from zoning to attach a new garage to the side of the existing house. There's an existing addition extension of the rear of the house that exists currently that is going to be renovated as part of the project. The existing main part of the house has an oversized clapboard aluminum siding. The rear of the house, the white there, is a vinyl siding. All the doors and existing windows, they have no muttons in them, and they're all vinyl, inserted.
Replacements.
Yeah. And so we're trying to keep within character, I guess, of Aldrich versus Middle when it comes to matching the character of all the surrounding houses. So, and then we're also proposing materials that are already there and exist. The only change would be with the new vinyl that we're proposing as part of the garage addition is that we're just going to have a color tone more similar to the main house and not have that kind of two-tone look with the white. But yeah, so new siding is proposed as vinyl to be similar in color to the main house. Windows would be the same as what exists in the main house with vinyl inserts. Exterior door and garage door would be kind of low maintenance, maintenance-free aluminum or composite material. Roofing would be asphalt, which would match the existing house as well. Again, I think it's pretty straightforward. We're just trying to kind of make it all match what exists on the house currently and then also with the neighborhood.
Great. Are there any questions to this? Sorry. Welcome our second alternate, Larry.
Hi.
Thanks for coming. You made it just in time for the last one.
I got the rental property fixed.
Okay. That's all right. Are there any questions on this?
Just clarifying a few things. So the garage is moving forward as part of the addition.
That's
so it will be closer and more visible from the street.
Correct.
And the schematic that you provided, because there's not a lot of architectural detail, because this is not something you proposed. You didn't draw this up necessarily for the HDC. The trim on the garage is super simple.
It would be a composite flat AZEK.
Okay. So it's not picking up, you're choosing not to pick up any of the design details on the main house, like the returns, any of the thick fascia boards. You're just going to go with plain simple.
Correct. Yeah, we were kind of more in line with what existed on the existing garage versus what existed on the house.
The existing garage is smaller than what you're proposing, so this is going to be a more visible, physically massive building.
Correct. I was referring to the details of not so much the size.
Right.
Any other questions? All right. If there are no other questions, we can move to any discussion. I don't know if anyone has
Anyone in the public?
thoughts. Yes.
Public?
Well, yes. I mean, before we open it to the public, I can certainly open it to the public if there are no questions. Is there anyone, there's nobody here, but if there's anyone here or online who would like to speak to this, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and wait for a motion.
I will make a motion to approve as presented with pretty much the same arguments of the last application. That this is a property that is half in the historic district and half out, and we are currently looking at excluding this whole lot from the historic district, and for that reason, I will application.
Second.
Any other discussion on this? I'll just say that, I think that the discussion on this house is very similar to our last application, in that this is, again, a parcel that's not clearly in or out of the district as it stands now. Our proposed boundary lines would take this out because this does not face Middle Street. And the materials that are presented would certainly do not meet our guidelines. The design, I think, is still, somewhat subordinate. The massing and everything would certainly be something that we would talk about, but the way that this garage is tucked back and away from Middle Street, I can't see how it is really going to be and have a negative impact on the district as it is. And looking ahead at potentially changing. Again, this is something that they could, just sit and wait for that change, the district boundary to change. So.
I would say, honestly, I have a problem, I'm sure you understand, with the timing and all of this. But my particular desire I don't see how the change from a detached plane could be made of materials that I don't think are appropriate to our district, to a semi-detached plane can be made of materials that I don't think are appropriate. I don't think that's a big change. I don't think that it's going to have any effect at all on its neighbors on Aldrich Street. Even someday, if someone in the future has architectural, responsibility of Aldrich Street, it's not going to have made a problem for them. I feel pretty comfortable voting for this.
Thank you. Any other comments or thoughts?
No, just an continuance of our other conversation. I think the Historic District this commission, before I was on it, put forth a proposal to remove this and the other property. The argument for voting for this, in addition to what everybody else has said, is not penalizing the homeowner for the city not actioning this for almost a year.
Yep.
For whatever reason, so.
All right. Then I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? No. Chair votes aye. All right. Thank you for coming. All right. That is it for tonight. Next week, Isaac will send out materials for the work sessions, and the postponed 325 Marcy Street will be the same. And we'll add a couple other little things, at least further this discussion to the agenda as well for the boundary discussion, just to make sure that we wrap up our final thoughts and recommendations to go back to the planning board on this.
Will McIntosh be back next week?
McIntyre will be back along with Humphreys Court for a work session.
Good.
Okay.
So it's on the agenda, nothing else will be on the agenda, just those two properties.
Well,
what we postponed to next week.
Okay,
325
Marcy Street.
So those three, and then we just have a small handful for admin approvals.
Okay,
So
and nothing else can be added at this stage because it's too late for July. Okay. Is it possible to participate remotely, or do I have to be here? Okay.
We can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will send you this is a specialized link, but I'll get that over to you. Yeah.
We might have a couple.
It'll just allow you to participate
If
in
you
full
wanted to go,
function. It's just like a regular.
remotely.
Sure,
or not.
thank you.
Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion is
All right. Thank you very much.